When I was racially attacked in a work environment that claimed social justice in of itself, when actually we were just funneling money, I steer away from groups that would like to call themselves justice-led, when the justice that our community needs is for you to sit next to them in court, not for you to utilize their story as a way to advance your fundraising goals.
Meet Araceli Esparza, a Chicana poet and founder of the Midwest Mujeres Collective. We discuss money shame, workplace racial harm, and how to pay yourself. Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of Thrivo Financial Advisory, formerly known as Economic Justice Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. Today, on the Purpose Profit Shift, I'm sitting down with Araceli Esparza, a first-generation Chicana poet, social entrepreneur, and founder of Midwest Mujeres Collective. What started as a conversation about Latino wellness in Wisconsin has grown into a mentorship movement helping Brown and Black women entrepreneurs find their voice, build their business, and close the wage gap, one story at a time. Araceli, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I've been so excited to learn more about your organization and the work that you're doing, and also think of people in my network that I want to make sure are connected to you. But our listeners haven't had the opportunity to get to know you yet. So can you give us just a brief intro of the work that you do so that can kind of ground the conversation?
Oh, absolutely. So for the last 4 years, much like yourself, like when you talk about movement organizing, right? George Floyd, the pandemic, all of those things motivated me to take on digital storytelling like never before. I started off with like YouTube videos and talkbacks on anti-Blackness in the Latino community, all the way to like, why wear a mask? Like, why should we wear masks? And like, why is that important? And
Yes.
through the pandemic, I was able to connect with so many other leaders that were willing to actually talk about their own stories of survival. It seemed like such an outpouring moment of like, how do we survive this? But like also understanding that this was maybe the first time some organizations like myself, who didn't know they were going to be organizations or movement makers, were being funded because of trust philanthropy. And prior to that, I had been already building my career in economic development and organizational development on a statewide level through philanthropy, fundraising, and sponsorship development or donorship development. That was kind of like one part of me, and then the other part was this, like, let's bring these stories together, and, several moments I just took on to, like, asking my friends, like, "Hey, let's do this together," and then from that, it snowballed into becoming, a one-day production, kinda like a TED Talk, kind of like, the Moth Stories, where we equip the women, ordinary women, women who are caregivers, who are nurses, who are teachers, who are accountants, women who work at daycare centers, women who started their own restaurant business, survivors of domestic or sexual assault survivors, adult grown women who are dealing still with like things of the past and never been able to have the platform or the stage to welcome their stories and release them in such a way. And so that led to that moment. And so then we have the birth of Midwest Mujeres, which we're like celebrating just like a year and a half of becoming a nonprofit organization. So that's the work that I've been doing, is coordinating a lot of asking the friends, right? Asking the people in my community to come over and teach ordinary women how to release their most extraordinary moments of pivoting, moments of survival, and what it took for them to, yeah, to make ends meet in in turbulent times. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. On the side too, I'm a mom of 2 kids, one that's 27 and one that's 18. Yes. And also married as well. So it's been beautiful. Thank you.
I love that. Such a beautiful experience and a great way to ground everything that we're going to talk about today. And I love that you talked about the personal, the professional, and some of the pivotal points in your journey. I think that sets us up really well. So, One of the things that you've been very vocal about is that you've experienced racial injustice in professional settings, including an unjust termination. And let's talk about how those navigating those experiences really informed the way you think about building financial resilience, both for yourself and the woman you serve.
You always have to have a plan B if you're a woman of color, in
Yes.
a professional setting. And it's hard to talk about that, like, right? We're always talking about, like, our exit as soon as we're talking about our entry and, like, once we get up into our field, it seems to be there's much more bilateral competition. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I found myself in a situation where I truly believe that it was sparked over jealousy and insecurity. A lot of times
Mm.
when we're dealing with racial discrimination amongst ourselves as women, it's going back to some of those things and just like the ability to apologize and move forward. And so I had to apologize to myself because I
Mm.
felt that a lot of times it was my fault. It was my fault. Like I should have seen the red flags. Like I should have been able to know that when they said, some people think of me as a man in the relationship, and that's one of the
Oh,
warnings I got was I should have been like, "Well, what man are you trying to talk about here? Like, why would you do that?"
right.
That
Yeah.
just yeah, red flag. So, there was a time where I had to, like, forgive myself
Yeah.
as a very intelligent woman, okay, because we're high achievers, alright, let's just be honest, like, hey, I
Right.
got a master's degree, I've been published, numerous of times, both my kids are college graduates, like, excellence to me is, like, serious, like, education was embedded to me as a child that that was the only way that we were gonna get out of poverty, and I wanted to help people when I graduated college, I went into nonprofit work. Nonprofit work is one of the lowest paid segments of our
Yes.
community, but yet is dealt with the hardest as far as, like, we're politicized when we don't want to be, we're also tokenized when we don't want to be, and utilized
Mhm.
in crisis moments, right? And so I went into that work and as a community organizer, as a coordinator of programming, and worked my way up to development and marketing over 60 organizations regionally. And so when I was racially attacked in the workplace in a work environment that claims social justice in of itself, when actually we were just funneling money.
Isn't
That
that so often the case?
it really is. It really is. I steer away from groups that would like to call themselves justice led when the justice that I need that our community needs is for you to sit next to them in court, not for you to utilize their story as a way to advance your fundraising goals. So,
Absolutely.
I'm all about paying the storyteller and servicing the community of which they come from, and I think that those I don't think those were the seeds. So, once I got past the anger, right? Once I got past the anger, it was like, "Now what?" Which is what my book is about, healing from racial discrimination in the workplace. Ahora qué? Now what? Like, that is what do you do after that? Because so many I grew up with stories about racial discrimination in the workplace
Yeah.
as a young child from my grandmother and my mother, both semi-severe. They weren't microaggressions, these were macroaggressions.
No,
Was taking
macroaggressions. Yeah.
macroaggressions, pictures, accusations of stealing,
Yes.
being belittled, because of their accent or, question about their legal status, even though my family legally immigrated to this country in 1924. Um, so the longevity of our history, we fought in a couple of wars here. So there's just a lot of history there. There's a lot of assumptions that go with being a woman of color in the workplace in any industry. And that being said, I really wanted to pivot Midwest Mujeres, the image of just having women from our community honored and their storytelling honored and providing them resources that were beyond monetary, that things that they could take with them forever.
Yes.
That's what I wanted. And done by people that look like them, people who live like them, people who
Yes.
spiritually perhaps reflect what they have also felt. And so that to me was really important because a lot of times I got this type of medicine from women that didn't live like me, unfortunately, especially
Yes.
in Madison, Wisconsin, being like 98% white. And there's nothing
Right.
wrong with being a white ally in my community. There's nothing, I don't see people differently just because of what happened to me. I know that that was
Yes.
one person. It's telling of our systems, right? It's telling more of our society than of like a whole group of people. 'cause I
Right.
know that there's been so many allyships that have helped me, build Midwest Mujeres, and they want this for them t for our women too, for all women. But yeah, those were kind of the seeds that started Midwest Mujeres was because of that, workplace episode, and it propelled me to write a book, a manual, mainly about healing from a very traumatic episode, especially coming from a survivor perspective, because I had
Yeah.
already been a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault in my life, and then only to have this happen to me.
Yeah.
You have to you like, you're like, "I know about the guys in my life, or I know
Yeah.
about these people in my life." But workplace? Really? So there's no safe place
Yeah,
except
I
for
wish I'd had your manual after my exit from, corporate. I remember and I'm glad that you called out that there were we're not just dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, that there are still instances of macroaggressions and overt racism. I remember trying to explain to some of my grandparents why I was leaving the job that they thought, "Well, you've made it. This is the top of your career being at a company like this. Why would you leave?" And having to explain to them that I am, you know, experiencing people joking about slavery in front of
Mhm.
me or comparing me to a runaway slave. Like these are not microaggressions. And they were shocked that we were still dealing with this. And I think that we culturally are talking a lot about the micros, but I think it's important that people know that in professional workspaces, that people of color are still experiencing overt, direct racism.
Absolutely. Based off of fear insecurities of our
Mhm.
supervisors. So, I have to help them too. This is like it gets so very convoluted very quickly. And,
Yeah,
where is my story in all of this? Like, my story of, like, the bilingual Latina Chicana that grew up here that wants to give back to our community, where my story gets lost in all of that. My main purpose and
yeah,
mission gets lost in the racial discrimination, because then I have to be thinking about all my inconsistencies, all of my insecurities, and
right,
those things get centered versus like, whoa, she's made all of this great work happen, and being a single parent, doesn't have generational wealth, you know,
right.
all of that. Is in a mixed status, relationship with my husband, and so, like, I sense all of these things, and now more so than ever, our stories are being needs to be told by us and not by,
Yes,
like, media, and I feel like we've been able to do that, a lot more since the, George Floyd uprisings a few years ago, and I really do appreciate the fact that we sit right next to the state that has gone through so much in the last 6 months. That's where
yes.
I did my undergrad and my master's studies was in
Okay.
Minnesota. Yeah. I always say that that's the land of my study, and it's seeing what it has just seeing what's been going on there, from a
Yeah.
distance,
The
is
terrorism.
inspiring and also very heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Things have happened even on the ground here in my own community. We've, done a lot of neighborhood organizing and just finding out who
Mhm.
your neighbors are more and just meeting with them on a more regular basis, and all of that has to I think that that's also, like, a little bit of the community that Midwest has brought to women is, like, "Now I know you in the room. Now we know each other. We really have
Yeah.
spent time with each other. Let's network with each other now." It just takes a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer, but it is so, so worth it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wanted to touch on is that you've described spending much of your life legitimizing your existence. And so you touched on this a little bit about explaining your name, explaining that you were born here, that your family has been here for a century. And so at what point did that experience shift from something that you felt like you carried like a burden to something that actually was fueling your mission?
Wow. It wasn't even, like, carried as a burden, it was, like, total embarrassment that I lived in a multi-generational
Hmm.
family, that it spoke of, like, an anti-capitalist type of household,
Yeah.
right? You're supposed to be independent, you're supposed to live on your own. What are you doing? Now we see everyone rushing back to living with their parents and being over 40 and normalizing that because capitalism has outdone you too.
Yes. Well, and still struggling to normalize it despite how
Oh,
common it's becoming.
It's very exactly. They're struggling with what we had to struggle in the '80s, I suppose. Like, I've been done there, done that, and I got the market in such a way that in very particular circumstances in catching our own house or catching our American dream after losing literally everything.
Yeah.
Had been robbed. My husband was robbed at gunpoint in Mexico in 2010. We lost, like, all of our stuff, including his citizenship. It was just
Oh, no.
ridiculous papers, everything, and I surely believe that if we were in a different administration, I don't think I'd be sitting here talking to you in Wisconsin right now. But it was definitely, like, trials and tribulations. I only go down that hill just to tell you that we've been very blessed, and I think that's when it started for me to start really speaking about when I had
Mhm.
nothing and talking
Yes.
about that plan B, how women of color, we know we're going to hit it's not even like a question of like if, it's a question of when is it gonna happen? When is it
Mhm.
gonna happen that you're almost homeless and, like, you've lost everything? You lost your job, you've lost this or that. It's not even a question of, like, if, it's when. And you're
Mhm.
prepared for that emotionally when you're kids because your parents keep on telling you about these stories about, like, these stories of survival and scarcity. And when I shift the change, when I really shift the mentality of that, of like, I had to, I think it took me the longest of a lot of people. I was like literally in my 30s. I was living in my early 30s, pursuing a second degree because we were out of options of what happened, about this
Hmm.
robbery that happened to us. So in 2010, having to reposition everything I thought about hustling and like of attainment to
Yes.
just like, "Hey, this is it. This is me. There's like there's no more nothing." And it's so there's no more, we always call it like pelos, like hairs on your tongue. I know it's kind of funny way of saying it, but it's kinda like taking out everything off of you. And in Spanish, we
Mhm.
have a saying like that. And to this day, no matter how many times I go in a room, and say, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to I used to have a podcast that I would and I would say, "This podcast was made for all Latinas. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to cook a tortilla, you don't know how to speak in Spanish. This is made for you." And so many women would respond to me. So many women would respond to me back, and they were like, "Oh, we love you for saying those things. Thank you." And when I started doing that, I just realized, I'm like, "I know I can help you do the same." Because
Mhm.
I was also, like, embarrassed as heck for having a multi-generational family in my household. I was also, like, pretty much scared to silence because of racial discrimination in the workplace.
Mhm.
In my own community, was made to feel as if I don't belong in the nonprofit industry community because there is, right? Every industry has its own community, so when you're taken
Yes.
out of that in such a rude manner,
Yeah.
it affects you.
And I would love to dig into that a little bit more because you've talked about this specific kind of loneliness. And how do you see that show up in women's relationship with money and business after being raised on these stories of scarcity and threat?
Absolutely, it's hard to visualize even numbers past a couple thousands. Like, and you
Yeah.
almost feel like you're embarrassed to name it, that you want $5,000 this week, today even. I used to joke around, I'm like, "Say the 5K day, 5K day, I'm just gonna have a 5K day." If you can just jokingly say that. That's why I started Yo Quiero Dinero, because Yo Quiero Dinero means I want money. Now for those '80s, '90s kids, they're gonna be like, "I remember Yo Quiero Taco Bell." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And yeah, it's a little play on that. There was also a song. And Yo Quiero Dinero was is the show that we do. After the women go through the Voices and Dreams Academy, they do a show about they do their 5-minute TED Talk about why they want money. Why weren't they given that money? What was about their journey that made them feel finally liberated, that went beyond
Mhm.
their value of that. So, Yo Quiero Dinero, what I always love about Yo Quiero Dinero, we're pivoting this year because it's the bicentennial anniversary of the United States, so we're gonna call
Right.
it Redream, yeah, the New American Dream. But and the other years, I always loved that title because it gave a smile to some of our elders in our
Yes.
community. Because then they would say, "Oh, I want money too." Like, it's just a
Yes.
funny thing to say, "I want money, yo quiero dinero." It's a fun thing to say that and so as we were able to say it to each other, we normalizing saying that to each other, we can then say that to our neighbors, to
Mhm.
our coworkers, to people who are advanced. So that particular loneliness, I think, you gotta break through that. You break through
Yeah.
that with some laughter, with some kindness to yourself and laughter. I think too, a lot of the times it's embarrassment of women to declare it at a certain age
Yeah.
because they're over 45. And in their minds, they're like, "Wait, I don't have a degree like you, though. I don't have this like you and all this." So I really try to also normalize what that ordinary excellence as well,
Yes.
and not try to come from, like, a hierarchy of, like, "Well, Araceli knows all because she went and has a master's degree." Like, "No, I'm right there with you. I'm in awe of
Yes.
you, and authentically, I am in awe of that you're doing all this. Like, I could not do what you're doing and how you did it." 'Cause, like, we
And
all each have our special sauce
yes.
and so forth. I tell him, like, "I only did what I did because it was easy for me to read and write." Like,
Right.
that was the easy thing to do. It might seem very
Exactly.
difficult.
You just love learning.
Yeah, it must seem very difficult for other people, and that's okay, and that's okay because what you're doing seems difficult to me as well.
Exactly.
Those skills are not seem as valid or as valued in our community, and that's unfortunate. And I wanna say mainstream community, because in
Yeah.
Mexican community, knowing how to be, the housewife, knowing how to be the caregiver, knowing how to be the excellent cook, those are and being the grandma, those are all very much, like, seen as, like,
Yes.
top positions. I literally used to think when I was a kid, "If I'm gonna be a grandma, I'm gonna fly, I'm gonna be able to do magic, I'm gonna make time grow." Like, I had all of like, to me, it was just such a beautiful title to have, to be
Yes.
a grandmother, to get older.
Yes.
I had all these magical iterations. Of course, I'm a very creative, thought thinker, that way storyteller. I'm a poet as well, folks, so I
Yes.
like to go on those ideas, sometimes just jokingly, right? But also, I mean, that's how I interpret it, in our culture was as but in mainstream society, being older is often you're oftentimes ignored. Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that I've really been wanting to ask is because you are working with women who are navigating this money shame and
Yeah.
navigating burnout and the pressure to perform success, what does it look like when someone reconnects with their voice after years of dimming it?
It's just incredible. It's so incredible. Some of the women have come on stage with tiaras, with a
Oh,
sash.
yes.
They come bailando, they're dancing a little bit. They're reconnecting with stories that were pivotal in their career. What was that one story that now makes them into becoming a full-time childcare provider? Because Latinas and Black women are overrepresented in the child
Yeah.
caring business, right? And hospitality and restaurant business as well. And so every year I kind of change like who we're going to target, like in that population. And last year was caregivers and daycare providers. And so we had some incredible stories about how women were moved by children in their care, and like that inspired them not only to become childcare providers but also childcare provider educators of other
Yes.
childcare providers. And they taught me things about inclusion, about working with children with disabilities, and
Mhm.
all kinds of things that inspires them. So when I'm seeing that, it's just like beautiful education to the community and reflection and so forth. No, they and now I be telling now we have like we've graduated 23 women
Okay.
from our program in the last 4 years, and they have videos out, headshots, professional headshots. They've been coached. They're now getting their own coaches, and now some of them have become coaches. Some of them are like, "You know what? I like this too. I wanna help empower other women." Yeah, no, it's great. They're asking for salary increases. They're going on
Wow.
podcasts just like this one, and so, yeah,
Yes.
it's good. It's good.
So, can you talk a little bit more about how storytelling becomes an actual economic tool for these women? Because I think that that is such a powerful part of this.
Right. So, like, about 80%, and we just did, like, a post, graduate survey, and about 80% of the women said that they got more social capital, connections, networking,
Yes.
confidence, all of those are they it's redefining monetary value. The monetary value that they get, yes, in that moment, they're getting more, clients perhaps, or they're getting that confidence to ask for more money. But the longevity on social capital that they're getting is gonna last a lot longer because it's a skill now. Now it's a skill.
Mhm.
How do I tell my story in a way that's from a perspective of abundance?
Yes.
And that mind shift change is for life, and
Yes.
they get to practice it in this laboratory where they're telling each other these stories, where they are playing with the stories they're doing, like, vision boards, or they're drawing about it, they're writing about it, they're getting poetic about it. They're owning labels that were told to them for disgrace and flipping it on their head and saying, "That's what they said yesterday, but this is what I'm saying today."
Yes. I
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
love that. It's so powerful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, you are currently launching a 5-week coaching program focused on rebuilding self trust. So, can you talk about why self trust specifically? And also, why do you think now is the time to launch this program?
So during the pandemic, and I go back a lot to that because I know people are gonna be like, "Wait, what year is it, Araceli?" It's been a couple years now. Those
But it was a
effects are
transformational
gone.
time.
It was a very transformational time, and I bring that up just to say that during that time, people figured out that they don't wanna work for other people's dreams. They wanna start working for
Mhm.
their own dreams, and people have not forgotten that. They have
Yes.
not forgotten that even now, even today. They go back to that time period perhaps because they're like, "That's when I learned to do this.
Right.
That's when I did this. That's when this happened." It will forever be like, a post. It will always be a post in our lives for that, and that's why I brought the whole thing about trusting yourself. During the pandemic, I sincerely, like, was letting go of a lot of labels, but maybe I was letting a couple new ones in, and that is being neurodivergent.
Mm,
And letting those labels in without shame and
yes,
more understanding this time, because trauma does change you.
it
Trauma
does.
does change you. It just plainly does. And so as a survivor, it's been very hard to learn to trust myself or like that I know what I do enough. Or who am I?
Yeah.
Or knowing who I am, knowing the knowingness, the aboutness of who I am,
Yeah.
and like actually trusting that I can do this. It's different than imp, um the imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right? I kind of push back on imposter syndrome because I have never faked who I am to anybody. It's not
Mm,
necessarily that I don't believe in that, it's who can I trust? Can I really trust myself in this next moment? Because
yes.
as a
I love
survivor,
that
I
you
know a lot of
separated
other
those.
negative coping skills, etcetera, right? Can I
Right.
trust myself in this iteration? One, not to fall into negative coping skills perhaps, but also can I trust myself into, like, launching myself. It's kind of those outer limits, Taking the Leap.
Yeah.
I love that book. The
Yes.
Atomic Habits
Great one.
book. Yeah, I like him. I like those guys, and I actually quoted him in my book as well in The Outer Limits and, like, taking that leap of faith of that of, like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a leap on myself. Can I
Yes.
take that leap on myself?" Yeah, it's learning to trust yourself again and knowing that, you don't have to, like yes, these are leaps, and nobody said how far they have to be or how high. You get to set that this time. This
Yeah.
time around, you get to set those for yourself. So that's what we're gonna really be investigating is techniques to trust yourself more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is beautiful and so necessary. And I was glad that you pointed out that learning to trust yourself is different or struggling with self trust is different than imposter syndrome, but it can definitely lead to the idea of feeling like an imposter because you don't trust yourself to show up in different situations. But getting to the root cause of that, as imposter phenomenon really has more to do with external people and how you think other people are perceiving what you're doing, and self trust is at the core of who you are.
Yes. Yes, yes. Thank you, Rachel. Yeah. Yes, it is there are 2 different things. They really are. And I feel like if I were to learn to trust myself more and be like, "This is just who I am." then I'm not confusing the other people. So sometimes people would tell me that too. They're like, "It's because you don't trust you," and then people can kinda sense that.
Yeah.
You gotta just be, like, really okay with not being maybe okay or maybe not being perfect. Oh, recovery
Right.
of perfectionism here a little bit, yes.
Oh, a lot of it over here. You are not alone. I always laugh at how much I end up having in common with different guests. And I think that the energy that we're putting out there when we are looking for guests and talking about what the podcast is about, that it's really resonating with the right people, with the right guest. So people like you. And it sometimes just makes me laugh because it works out better than if we had intentionally planned it that way.
Oh my gosh, yes. No, I had no idea we were gonna go down this way, and thank you to, Rachel for kinda just, like, connecting those dots for me because I too am like, it is about trusting myself. I've never really liked that word about imposter syndrome because I know what I'm trying to present myself as. Do I trust myself in that moment, though,
Yeah.
to be the 100% because I have it high, first gen, you know what I'm saying, work ethics
Yeah.
that are, like, extremely high, more high than possibly my own, white counterparts, because they didn't have all that pressure to succeed, like you were just talking about. I'm sure it was very hard to tell your own family that you're leaving this corporate job, of which they probably were like, "Yes, you made it. You made it. Why are you backing
Right.
down now?"
Yeah. Because
It's a huge pressure to go
yeah.
into to these jobs or positions of leadership, and if you don't trust who you are, not that you don't, it's like you do, but am I gonna live up to the little, itty bitty, pity machine inside that's telling you, "You gotta
Yeah.
be over here, excellent, excellent." Yeah, 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 one time I was, coming back from an event and, people had been taking pictures of me or something, and, my husband's like, "Did you have that toilet paper stuck to your shoe the whole time?"
Oh, no.
I was like, "I am so glad that people were only taking pictures of me from the face up." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, I didn't see it." And that is kind of like how I feel like I'm going into some of these spaces with that already,
Yes.
and they're like, "Wait, you're a leader, but I see this." I'm like, "No,
Well,
don't look at." But
right.
that's
I'm a
also
leader, but I'm also a human.
exactly, but that's also my authenticity, of which I do not want to be in those circles if it means that I get rid of those things of that make me authentic and human.
Absolutely. One of the things that I would love to hear more about, and I think our listeners would as well, is how you decide kind of what to invest in and what to sunset when you're operating on a nonprofit budget because you have different programs, the annual
Mm.
storytelling event, a membership, Be Bold, Take the Mic, the Chingona Leadership Program, the Voces en Sueños Academy. So there,
Yes.
you're doing a lot of different things. How are you managing to kind of prioritize and fund those and manage all of the operational challenges that come with having so many programs?
So the Chingana program with the Be Bold program, we kinda switched those to become more monthly Zoom calls.
Okay.
And yeah, we switched those to be mostly monthly Zoom calls, kinda like a podcast, but so forth. And then what we're diving into right now is building an AI, like, generated educational platform where
Okay.
people will only focus on storytelling and leadership development and network and how to network and so forth. So we're kind of doing those type of things in the program instead. As far as like but a lot of that has been too like sticking in your lane and being
Mm,
like absolutely like I'm only going to do this if and when you can augmentate it to what we're already doing.
yeah.
And so that because we're an intersectional organization, meaning we don't provide, complete direct services in the sense, but
Okay.
we do provide, um, um, our groups are basically our support group curriculum.
Yes.
through the Voices and Dreams Academy. So that's been kinda cool too, because I don't provide direct services, but I'm more of a referral service, and we also do technical assistance to other nonprofits who are looking for
Ah,
storytelling, technical assistance, and that part has been amazing, Rachel, because I am, working with, like, national groups that deal with whose members are disabled and who want and need help with their movement making so they don't burn out as well.
yes.
And how have I basically, it's really like, how do you do so much and not burn out?
That's the real question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of
But part of
mindfulness.
it is you have talked about wanting to replicate this model across the Midwest, having,
Yeah.
a next Araceli in, Des Moines, Green Bay, or Eden Prairie. And so, what has to be true about your organization before you can continue kind of handing that playbook to other organizations? It sounds like you're already doing some of that work.
Exactly. So we are already doing that. Actually, this week we are going to have an event in Milwaukee that's totally community based and run. And the way we went about it is also going to be it's showing me that that's how we're going to continue doing it, is networking with local organizations in that area and supporting this totally for free, and us coming in kind of showing you the ropes and you kind of launching it yourselves maybe, and maybe there's a Milwaukee
Yes.
chapter happening pretty soon. And so that part has been really exciting to see how it's gonna blossom because, yes, no, absolutely, Rachel, I know in, like, 4 to 5 years, I'm done. I'm just no, I'm already giving myself that timeline and planning accordingly, and absolutely, I do know there in this industry, as you know, there's founder syndrome, it's called. Yeah, no, not here. I absolutely do not. This was a gift. This was a gift and a reflection, and I was chosen to help to do this, not because I necessarily wanted to be chosen. I felt like I was chosen. Believe me, friends, I bucked at the idea of doing a nonprofit after coming out of an organization that hurt me so bad. I did that for
Yeah.
4 years, and I worked with a fiscal sponsor for 4 years. That's like a middleman who also takes money from you. No, well,
Yep.
they're charging you for the service, right? They're
Yes.
charging you for the service, and once I decided on this is what we're gonna do, it became a lot easier for me, and there's been a lot of affirmations, spiritual affirmations, life affirmations that have said that this you're on the good path, and so now it's just, like, getting the sauce ready, and then absolutely, but we're replicating it on, in smaller ways, yeah, and letting the women take it let them take it. Men have told me too, they want a chapter from Midwest men. I'm like, "Go right ahead. I am so ready for you. Let's do this. Let's do this." But it does take the dedication, and so that's what I'm
Yes.
gonna model first right now for the next couple years is that dedication and showing up. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such an important call out about what it means to build a legacy, to build an organization or build work that lasts beyond the founder, and how that is so much easier when our ego is not caught up in, oh, like you said, in this founder syndrome. When we are dedicated to the work and we show up for the work, it makes it a lot easier to think about legacy and succession planning and kind of what comes next after you.
Yeah, it's like, what legacy do you wanna let leave? I want the legacy to be said that she let us do whatever we want. As long as it was liberating, as long as it was liberating other women, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There were no rules. It didn't matter if you didn't speak Spanish or English. The fact is that we want Latinas and Black women to unite with us, and we have so far, and with white women allies to our side, to also teaching us and also helping us and holding our hands
Yeah.
so that we can all walk together with closing the gender wage gap. Yeah.
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 And I think one of the things that I'm now thinking about is that both of us understand the power of storytelling
Yeah.
and we have used it in different mediums. I even recall once I was in a not a case competition, but it was kind of a pitch competition. And one
Oh,
of the things they had us do in preparation was work with Second City, the famous comedy club group here in Chicago, to actually learn about storytelling in preparation for the pitch. And so I'm wondering if you can share more about how some of these women are using storytelling as an economic tool, what they are actually doing after they learn these skills, so that it can kind of illustrate to listeners how powerful storytelling is and how flexible it is of a medium
Oh,
that you
yeah.
can use to progress so many different types of goals.
Absolutely. For some of the women, they've been able to now do more social media to attract more clientele. They have become speakers in their own right. A lot of them, some 2 of them I know are starting to write their own books.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, and I know a couple others who asked, like I said, like, asked for a raise at a corporate position. For some of them, this has been very healing. One of them utilized this as a way to finally tell their story of abuse to their immediate family, because the
Mm,
abuse happened in an extended family many decades
yeah.
ago. And another woman utilized this to solidify a divorce, a separation.
Mm.
I know, and then he was in the audience. I'm like, "Oh my gosh,"
I'm glad the
but yeah,
question
I
answered
mean,
for
it
both.
had to happen. It had to happen. You might say, "Well, how is that financial?" I mean, I think it is when you are
Oh,
declaring your own
absolutely.
financial freedom, because financial freedom for men is huge in divorce or separation or abuse. It's very much intertwined. Even when you are in a happy marriage, it's still hard. It's still
Yes.
hard to declare your own financial freedom, and you just yeah, I'm telling my husband, "No, I don't want you to pay for everything, like, I don't feel good for you to pay everything. It just doesn't feel right." I don't know what it is, it just I'll never be okay with that. Maybe that's my working class values coming through and yeah, my immigrant ethic, immigrant worker ethic coming through there, but yeah, I think that the women were able to also introduce themselves in rooms where they previously didn't think they belonged in.
Yes.
'Cause if they conquered a stage, if they conquered telling their story amongst people they didn't know, then nothing else is gonna be that intimidating for them.
Yeah.
We teach them how to breathe. We teach them a little bit about improvisation, how to stand.
Valuable skill set.
Yeah, how to stand, how to pose, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Active listening, all of those things are things that we teach them too.
Crucial and so many transferable skills.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, those are just some of the ways that the women have taken our program and then taken it to another level. Yeah. And we give them a video too, where they can remember it because it's been produced and they get like their own little
Oh,
video. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
if anyone listening is interested in joining the new course that is launching, how would they go about finding out more about the self trust program and connecting with you?
Yeah, just go to my website, araceliesparza.com, and follow me on all socials. Yep, that would probably be the
Thank
best way
you.
is just, like, go to my website and just, fill out a contact form, and there's also a page on there right now too to get your information. Thank you.
Of course. And we'll have that definitely linked in the show notes for everyone. And then, as we're kind of wrapping up, one question that I wanted to ask is about something that you wrote that being a Latinx writer means being able to catch fires, to bring forth something from labor and sweat, to have enough when there's not a lot. So, for the founder listening right now who feels like they don't have enough, whether that's resources, visibility, or validation, what would you love to tell them?
You got the medicine.
Mm,
Your medicine is your story. The times that you're made to feel little or small and you change that up, even if it was you might not think it was much, that was 100 steps in somebody else's for someone else. Talk
yes.
about that. Talk about that part. People are listening and they wanna help you.
Yeah. When founders are able to lean into storytelling, that's one of the ways that I found, especially for smaller brands, a way that we can remain competitive when we're
Yes,
up
yes.
against the Goliaths is by being authentic and really leaning into our own voices and our own stories and the
Yeah.
power of that to connect with our ideal customers.
Absolutely, and beta test, just t test
Yes.
some of it, so there have been a lot of things that I have tried, the people that you go to program, etcetera, and some of them they just weren't for me. It wasn't for me, we consolidated, did other things, you know, I c I oftentimes use surveys, SWOT analysis with my participants, and they tell me, "Araceli this, Araceli that." Do it this way. We need this more. We need to know about the writing part earlier. We need to know. So really, like you might think what is boring is actually what they want.
Oh, that is gold.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that just I think so often the things, and you articulated this so well earlier. You said that the people look at you and the things that you've done and they think, oh, that's incredible. That was so incredibly difficult.
Yes.
And you're like, well, it was easy for me. That's why I did it. But there are things that they are doing. And so I think that we often, when something is easy for us, we assume that that must mean that it's easy for anyone. And then we discount it.
Yes, like,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, but no, actually, that's your medicine, that's you, it's whatever
Yeah.
it is. If it's it could be knitting, it could be whatever. Whatever brought you into becoming a founder. I know, and I say knitting and sewing because there's another founder in Milwaukee who started a whole, support group from sewing, and she's being supported by several other nonprofit organizations, and she's a founder herself, and it was all based on about sewing. Could be cooking. It could be about, reading stories to children. It could be
Yes.
about couponing. Like, it's okay. Whatever is your circle, grow it.
You can find community in that.
Make it so that it can support you too. Because it wasn't until I became a nonprofit I was able to support myself on a salary. Oh my gosh, I get paid. Woo! I got paid, I pay taxes now. I didn't do that was not my reality 2 years ago. That was not my reality. I saw money very, very different than I do now. And it started with me telling myself out loud that money is energy, money is energy, money is energy.
Yes.
It's not a number that I can just like, when I started thinking of it that way, it started releasing a lot of things in me as well. Not for everybody, but for me it worked. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, what a journey. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. For everyone listening, that was Araceli Esparza, poet, founder of multiple organizations, and living proof that when you center stories, culture, and community, you can build a movement. As always, if this conversation resonated with you, here's what you can do. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you listen to podcasts. We've got episodes dropping regularly with more visionary founders and changemakers who are reshaping how business gets done. And if you found value in today's episode, leave us a rating and review. It helps other values-driven leaders find us. Until next time, keep leading with intention, scaling responsibly, and building businesses that matter. I'm Rachel Brunier Green, and this is the Purpose Profit Shift.